It's April 4th, 2017, Anarach, Iran. I saw your preface in Lajavardi in Tehran in October. I know that Setareh has presented your first chapter in Utrecht. And I know that you're working on chapter 2 and 3.
True.
How has the work been like?
So today we're here to reflect on the collaboration and give some sort of a report of how it's been. So we will talk briefly about where this collaboration comes from historically in our personal histories, why we've made it a formal collaboration, what the challenges have been, and finally we'll wrap up by talking about what outcomes we've seen develop throughout this collaboration that we did not expect, but we embrace it and we welcome it now.
Okay.
So maybe you could begin by telling him where this collaboration comes from.
The collaboration goes back to where we started to be friends, I guess. It's been a while that I kind of tried to include Shahrzad in my challenges that I have and the questions that I have about body in my own work. And Shahrzad was studying medicine, and she was busy with body in a different way, maybe, or in a particular way. And it was very interesting for me to bring her knowledge in. But next to that, I think we were both the citizens of Tehran and friends, and we were living together, like not in the same place, but in the same city, and had this kind of similar
We're exposed to the same sort of socio-political, cultural context.
Yeah, and so we were sharing the same kind of agenda and same kind of social and political inputs, and this was the most important thing for us to be involved in each other's thoughts and thinking processes more than anything.
Okay. And how? So you were doing fine.
There already was this organic dialogue.
Yeah, you were friends who have mutual points in both your questions outside of your disciplines about different things and your skills in certain things in your disciplines.
True.
So you had this synergy already going on smooth. How? And I imagine when you join something like Arts Cabinet, or you do this, the thing that you were doing right now, you were making it more serious in a sense. How would that help? What was the necessity to shift through this?
Well, from my side, I guess the reason we already were in this dialogue, apart from being friends and being apart from this desire being always present to figure out each other, to figure out each other's brains and bodies. Apart from that, from my side, it was an opportunity to explain to myself, to my friends, and to anyone else who was interested why I'm interested in such dialogues. Because such dialogues are not expected from me, doing what I do and living the life that I live. But I've always jumped, I've always welcomed such dialogues, and I've always said that I feel privileged that I've been exposed to Setareh's work now. I've seen it develop the way it has. So for me, to make it formal, it was just this sort of an exercise to explain, an exercise to formulate why I'm interested in such dialogues. And I guess we can talk about it more, but I'm curious to know like what happened, like how this shift happened for you.
Yeah, I would say Arts Cabinet's suggestion was for me to bring my questions in a more formal and concentrated way and present it to the public. So this idea of sharing our internal dialogue, which I did not only have with you, there were some other collaborators that were already involving my bodiless heads questions. And this was an opportunity to focus on one of these dialogues and actually share it with the public that I was wishing for. I was wishing to connect in some point. But the thing that we could have still done all of these things by ourselves. Like we didn't. What was the reason that Arts Cabinet came in was mainly their interest in joining us as two disciplines, which we still are not really relating to it completely. But it was an interesting question also in the context of both of our works, I think, to see what it means that someone coming from an artistic background works with someone coming from an academic background. Having said that, the more we work together, the more we are like aware of the organic relationship that we have created before, which has much more context than our disciplines, and basically the collaboration is more and more clear for us that comes from an individual personal connection more than a discipline connection. Just to add one more thing to finish it.
Jump up.
Yeah, jump up.
I think so this will somehow change the nature of your relationship as it becomes a task rather to be this ongoing social dynamic. How do you find this next mode of operation? Like you have this formal, task-like activity. What are the challenges?
Well, before going to the challenges, may I add something to the previous one? Well, like as we explained, there already was this organic dialogue. But then in the past, like 6 or 7 months, that we have formulated and reformulated Setareh's questions, which are now our questions, and we've reflected on our collaboration because we've, as I told you, like part of the task now is to explain ourselves, to explain why we're working together. We've talked about different aspects of this collaboration, but I think the pattern that keeps coming up, which is, I guess, also quite obvious, that neither of us was content, neither of us was satisfied with what our disciplines were already providing us with. So in a nutshell, like I think the formulation that now we agree on, more or less, is that for me, like I lacked contact with the real world, like doing what I do. Like I did not have to, I was not expected to explain my PhD thesis, for example, to, I don't know, my uncle, for example, or like anyone else, anyone who was only curious to know what I do, but not necessarily trained in the same discipline or any discipline in humanities. So I lacked this contact with the real world and the feeling that I'm relevant in what I do to my society.
And for me, it was like it was not like, I cannot generalize how arts this as a discipline works, because there's not only one way, but what was clear for me was that I went to a European country to study about body and dance, and I felt that there is a big kind of void of knowledge in relation to the place that I come from. And there hasn't been enough like theoretical work in relation to the context that I come from, provided to the, let's say, a student, a dance student or a choreography student in the Netherlands. And this was the thing that that made me question a lot of the inputs that I was getting in this artistic context, and needed to break that. And the only way was to connect to people who are who their work relates to the context that I come from, but from another point of view, or from another, like through another tools, like let's say medicine or history or literature, and this kind of like bodies of work that already are existing.
Let's go back to the question. I question, how do you find this new mode of operation? Were there any new sort of challenges involved? You began quick here.
Yes.
The way I see it, the biggest challenge has been, at least for me, we could talk about this, like readjusting our relationship with research questions, and readjusting our different approaches to research questions. We were talking about this yesterday, that, well, the world where I come from, like a question like Setareh's question is just too general, too interdisciplinary, it's basically an impossible question. It can only be made possible if we have enough resources and enough budget to put together 3 teams, for example, to answer the question. So but in her world, it seems more like it's like a what-if question would suffice for a project to be set in motion. So this was, for me, it took me quite a while to feel comfortable with. For me, a question is a question that you more or less know how to navigate from point A to point B. You know what your methods are, you know what your tools are, what skills you have or you have not, what resources you have, whether or not you have access to the resources, what's your timeline. You need to readjust all these in a way to make the question possible and feasible.
And then we said that actually the process of making that general question feasible is maybe the process that we are going through in this year. So this is that, making that process transparent before presenting our fantastically feasible question, research question.
So would you agree with that, that you coming to real world find the form of what-if question more functioning than the type of questions you are used to answer or ask?
Can you rephrase the question? I didn't get it.
You were previously telling that you what you seek outside of the academy is the contact to real world.
Yep.
Okay. Now that you've contacted the real world, you are confronted with a new form of overly general, maybe even impossible type of question that you formulated as a what-if question. Okay? So do you agree that this might be a very distinct thing that you're having here as the real world, as the offering to the real world?
Yeah, I do agree.
Okay.
Yeah, it's as if this was the biggest challenge for me, to stop myself from freaking out, stop myself being too controlling of the way she would formulate her questions, and just sit back and observe, and every now and then try to maybe give some structure, try to suggest maybe we need to look into this so-and-so methodology, or maybe we could contact so-and-so a scholar, for example. But this was, I think, the main thing that I learned.
This openness.
Yeah.
And also
not freaking out.
Also, we had our own objectives, of course, started somewhere, but we needed to be open with the products that we are, with the outputs that we are creating. So we didn't know up until 2 months ago or 1 month ago that the presentation in Utrecht will be a chapter for us. And then things were we were very organically, but also in a quite an intuitive way, connecting our questions to the activities that would come on our way, and we were grabbing everything inside of this project. They could have been separated.
That's quite challenging.
Yeah. And also I wanted to add something that my challenge, which is still a challenge, is how on earth do we separate the bodies that are present from the content that is created.
Yeah.
So, and what I was hoping actually that through Arts Cabinet would be provided for us was the facilities that we could explore that, which didn't really happen, but we are still working on it. And I hope that the chapter 3, which is the Christmas time, is the time that we actually relate to that. I mean, of course, I also related to it a bit, or played with it in Utrecht. But what I'm talking about is the urgencies that our bodies right now, while we are recording this video, have, and how can that, in relation to you, in relation to the group that is here, everything, how can those things not be included when we create a text? A lecture, or...
So my challenge would be keeping this amazing experience in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
May I add something?
Okay. You really want to add something?
No.
Okay.
I don't have to. I'd like to.
So, I'd like that too, but you presented some facts that have been gathered through this journey that was unexpected of the sort, that you embrace and you're happy about.
Yep.
Can you describe those things as well?
Sure, this is quite fortunate that your answer is kind of related to the thing that I wanted to say and I did not manage to say.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Take the opportunity.
Just to rephrase what Setareh was elaborating, and I think we've also extensively talked about this, that in the academy where I'm being trained, I can always be sure that if I'm attending a conference and I've already written my paper, anyone can present my paper. So it's just this piece of information that I've just given birth to, and it's on paper now. Yeah, and anyone else can just read it. So and I'm quite frustrated about this. I go to a conference and it happens rarely that I do not have the feeling that Well, you could have emailed me your articles and I could have read them in the comforts of my own home. Like, why are we
gathering?
Yeah, why are we physically here? So I really enjoy the way Setareh is like challenging this conventional frontal form of presentation. Of course, like we're talking about different contexts. Like I would not be trying what you tried in Utrecht, for example, at this conference in Mainz.
Why not?
So in an academic context, of course, I'm going to continue with this like frontal, conventional, like mode of presentation. But at least I'm more aware of it now. And to the side products that you want to elaborate.
Yeah. So yeah, in relation to that, one of the side products for me, or they can also be called the challenges, how do I transform my studio work with Shahrzad's body to a studio condition that we have now, meaning it's a bodiless studio. Like I will have Shahrzad's present as a Skype figure or like emo figure in my room, like leaning on like a, I don't know, chair or a desk or a tissue box or something, and then how does that inform me about our bodily relation, and how can that become a form of presence that we can still include in our presentation. So this is, for me, it's a side product of this process, because I was quite confident that I would have the time and I would have her in the studio, we would try this and that, and then in some point I was like, okay, I need to be realistic, this is not going to happen. So let's see what is happening, and let's like take that as the studio process, which is also a question like why in the art scene this studio work is becoming so crucial, and how
the work itself.
Yeah, where does the work happen actually? Yeah, and then there is
the major side product I can name, which I think it kind of also relates to the challenge, the big challenge, like dealing with such general questions. I and also we have had to use more general terminology. Like we've had to talk about our cultural context, and we've had to name it. So the product has been for me that, like I've always been more or less aware of the political connotations of the terminology that I use, but this more general formulation of questions, and also knowing that the type of knowledge that we're producing is much more readily transferred to the general public compared to an article that I would be writing, and I have no idea who would be reading, how many people would be reading. Like being aware that like it's more readily available to the general public, it has made me more sensitive to the terminology that we use. So for example, like I've begun to question more quickly like the use of such terms as the medieval times, talking about Avicenna, for example, 10th century in the Islamic world, or like the term Islamicate, or the Middle East, of course, the most notorious of all. So
this is like the moments that this organic or like subconscious that we had between each other, like the agreements that hasn't been spoken was challenged to be spoken about. So we knew that we don't necessarily believe in some kind of dichotomy between East and West, but then how do you relate to a geographical context without it being colonized by all these words that has been already colonized by this and that, and like trying to kind of empower this dichotomy that we don't believe in. So So we are actually on the edge of like creating words and like kind of introducing them as like a new, like these are like the
I think we should.
like, yeah.
I think you should adopt to Western Asia, Southwest Asia as
Yeah.
methods.
Yeah, but
We are overrun our time, so we
Okay.
can talk.